Hey Jewel Schoolers, my name is Laura and today we are making a Kunzite scallop necklace. As we are crafting our way into spring, I thought this would be a great project to show you guys. We have an incredible strand of graduated Kunzite beads that I fell in love with the first time I saw them. I'm not usually a pink and purple kind of girl, but this strand got my attention and stole my heart, and I know you guys are gonna love it too. I love a good graduated strand because it gives you such a variety of sizes in your beads. So you can use it for tons of different projects, and you can really get the most out of a graduated strand. We also have this really great set of glass crystal beads. They're little rondelle shapes, and I love teeny tiny little beads. If you follow me on Extra, you know that that is my jam. And this had a really great pastel pink color strand in the set, and so I thought it would pair perfect with the Kunzite. And I really love this scalloped shape that we're making. I think it's soft and feminine, which worked really well with the Kunzite, with that like pastel-y pink and those nice feminine soft curves. Let's talk about the tools and supplies that we're going to use in this project. First and foremost, we're going to use our Kunzite strand. It's graduated, like I said, so I'm going to be using the front, the bigger section of the Kunzite, but you can graduate it however you want. That's one of the great things about a graduated strand. We are also going to be using these glass crystal rondelles in this pastel pink color, but if you want to use a different color and kind of contrast a color with the Kunzite, that is totally up to you. You can make it your own. We are going to be using a gold chain. Y'all, we have tons and tons of gold tone chain or silver tone chain, whatever metal tone you want to use in this project on jtv.com. And I made it with one type of chain, and then I'm going to show you guys how to make it with another type of chain. So any type of chain, and then a lobster claw clasp and some jump rings. We're also going to be using 24 gauge wire. Again, we have tons and tons of different options on jtv.com. Any metal tone, any color of 24 gauge wire will do. For our tools, we're going to be using the trifecta, your most basic, most like foundational tools when you're making jewelry. We're going to use a chain nose plier, a round nose plier, and a flush cutter. I also have my Nylon Jaw Plier, which I take everywhere with me. If you don't have a Nylon Jaw Plier, you need one in your life. It is going to save you so much time and headache, and it is also going to save you wire. Use it to straighten out my wire, pull any kinks out, and you can really extend the life of a spool of wire if you've got this Nylon Jaw Plier. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that we're gonna do is cut ourselves about 2.5 to 3 feet of 24 gauge wire. The amount of wire that you're gonna cut is gonna depend on what size beads you use and how big you wanna make your scallop section. I have made this with like 3 or 4 beads, and then I've made it with like 10 to 15 beads. So you can make this section as big as you want, but that's gonna determine how much wire you're gonna need. So I'm gonna cut myself 2.5 to 3 feet. As you guys know, I like to give myself a little extra. That way I don't run out in the middle of my project, and I've got a good amount of working wire to grab onto. So we will just cut that off with our flush cutters. Set that aside. So now that we have our 24 gauge wire cut, we're gonna grab our chain, and I'm just gonna cut this in half. You just need 2 pieces of equal length chain. And again, that is gonna be determined by how long or how short you want your necklace. So that kind of is your own personal preference there. So I'm just gonna cut this in the middle. And now I've got 2 equal length pieces of chain. Now we are going to make a loop in our wire about 6 to 8 inches down from the end of your wire. So this is going to be the wire that goes through your Kunzite that attaches to the piece of chain, and this is the wire that we're going to make the scallop with. So you just need enough room to be able to make that kind of arc shape with your Kunzite. So again, how far you go down on your wire is going to depend on how many beads you have and what size beads. So I think this is a good amount for me, and I'm going to start making my loop here. So we'll grab our round nose pliers and we are gonna make a loop. And before we close it off, so I've got my loop here, and before we close it off, I'm gonna slide one end of my chain on here and pull it down into my loop like this. And now I will grab my chain nose pliers and grab a hold of that little loop. And then I'm gonna use my long piece of wire to just coil that around and close off my loop here. Just get a couple coils is all you need. And now we are going to string our kunzite. I used the middle section of this graduated strand because I liked those sizes. You can use whatever size beads you want, you know, within that graduated strand, but I liked kind of this chunky look, so I used the bigger beads. And so now I'm just gonna string from one end to the next. Doesn't matter which side you start on. String these on here real quick. Okay, so now that we've got our kunzite strung on our shorter piece of wire, I am going to just make a little curly Q down here at the end of that piece of wire so my kunzite doesn't fall off, and I can let them kind of dangle at the end of that wire and I don't have to worry about them falling off. See? Okay, next we are going to string a bunch of our little crystal rondelle beads onto this longer piece of wire. So we are just gonna start stringing, and I string as much as I can. That way I don't have to stop and add more beads later. I can always take, you know, excess beads off if I string too much, but it's kind of a headache to stop what you're doing and have to add more beads. So we're just gonna string a bunch of these onto this end of the wire. All right, so now that we've got a good section of our crystal rondelles strung, I am again gonna make myself a little curly Q down here at the end so that my rondelles will not fall off. And we're gonna get started making our scallops. So first thing we're gonna do is push our first piece of kunzite down towards that loop we just made. And, well, keep it there. And we're gonna drop a little section of our rondelles down. And I'm just gonna wrap these rondelles around my kunzite. And I want them to kind of sit pretty closely to my kunzite, so I kind of have to play around with how many beads I use. And because this is a graduated strand, like each scallop is going to have a different amount of those crystal beads, so you just have to play with what you feel like looks good and looks right. So I've got it where my little scallop is tucked nicely next to my kunzite, and I'm just going to wrap that wire around that other piece of 24 gauge wire, and we're going to drop our next kunzite down. And now we're going to drop some more crystals. And again, just kind of fit them nicely up against our kunzite. Pull them around. I want them like sitting closely to the kunzite, because if there's a lot of gapping or like space between the kunzite and the beads, that is an area that could get caught on something and it can kind of deform that scallop shape. So if you keep it up close to the kunzite, there's a lot less chances that something's going to get in between there and kind of pull that scallop loose, and also potentially break your wire and kind of deform your whole piece. So keeping those tucked in nice and tight, it's going to save you some headache later. And then we're just going to continue doing this all the way down our wire. And again, as the graduation gets bigger, we're going to need one or two more pieces of our crystals. It's not that extreme of a graduation. In this strand, you could make it more extreme, like you could pull from the end of the kunzite strand and have much smaller beads at the beginning and really kind of exaggerate the graduation. I just kind of kept it subtle or slight, but whatever style you like, you can do. Another great thing about graduated strands, so many opportunities. We are just going to continue until we get all of our scallops wrapped around all of our kunzite. And now we are to our last piece of kunzite. So I'm going to drop that down and make another scallop here. Man, I think I strung the perfect amount of my crystal beads, which never happens. Maybe have one extra. Okay. So I am going to just give this a tug and just kind of make sure I'm pulling my kunzite down so that they're nice and snug next to each other as well. And I'm just going to give this a couple wraps to just kind of tie off this piece of the wire that our crystal beads are on. You can pull this back through your scallop back here and go underneath that piece of wire. If you've left enough space, you can get it through. There we go. Like pull it back this direction, just to give yourself a little security there. But we're gonna wrap back down onto this coil so it's not, it's gonna end up being really secure. And again, I'm gonna pull any slack out. I like to grab at the base of my wire with my chain nose pliers and roll my pliers and just pull as much slack out as I can get. Okay, so now we are ready to make our next loop, and we're gonna attach our other piece of chain. So we will grab with our round nose pliers here, right at the end of that coil that we made with our crystal strand. We're gonna make a loop here. Like that, and before you close it off, we're going to cut that tail off, and we are gonna string our other piece of chain onto this loop. Like this. Make sure you get it kind of snapped into that loop, and then we're gonna finish off this loop and close it down towards the center of our necklace. All right, so we're gonna pull down or continue wrapping down until we get it nice and tight there. And you want to make sure that it's not too tight so that you can still have room to bend your scallop in, or your centerpiece into this kind of arc shape, but you don't want a bunch of slack and a lot of movement in your beads. All right, so then we're going to cut that off. Tuck our tail in. Make sure we just don't have the ends of our wire poking out. Get snagged on your shirt. Get snagged all kinds of places. Okay, so now I'm going to continue to tighten the wire that our crystal beads are on. So I've grabbed down here at the base of the wire where the coil starts, and I'm just rolling my plier and pulling this slack out, really getting it nice and tight. And like you can see by the kinks that I got quite a bit of slack pulled out. That's a really important step for me. Then we're gonna snip that off. And then we'll just tuck our tail in again. And now we are just gonna make sure we like the shape of our scallop or our centerpiece section. You can bend it up into a tighter arc, or you can pull it wider. That's kind of going to depend on the length of your necklace. So if you've got a long necklace, you're probably going to want a tighter arc, because your chain's going to pull together and it's going to lay more like naturally if it's pulled into a tighter arc. If you're going to have a necklace up here, up higher on your neck, you probably want to open up your arc a little bit because those wires are pulling apart right up there and going around your neck. So that is kind of going to determine the shape of your arc. So since this is gonna be kind of middle range, I'm gonna do a middle range arc shape. And now we are gonna put our clasp on. So I'm just gonna grab my chain nose pliers here, and I've got a jump ring that I've already opened. And we're gonna slide this on to the end of our wire here. And just close this up. So that's one side of our clasp, and then we are going to put the other side of our clasp on to the other piece of chain. So I've got my open jump ring here. Slide my lobster claw on. And then we'll find the end of this chain and slide it onto that jump ring too. And we'll get these closed up. All right, now we're finished with our scalloped kunzite necklace. Throw this on, show you guys how it looks. Okay, so let's go back over the tools and supplies that we used to make this project. We used our Kunzite graduated strand, our pink pastel crystal rondelles. We used 24 gauge wire, our chain nose plier, our round nose plier, our flush cutter, and our nylon jaw pliers. Let us know in the comments below what bead combinations you're going to use to make this scallop necklace. And while you're there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for joining me, you guys. I'll see you next time.